My name is Elena, and I was 15 years old when my mother looked me straight in the eyes, handed me $200 in cash, and walked away with her new husband and his children. No warning, no explanation, just a casual shrug of her shoulders as she turned her back on me at Gate 24 of the International Terminal. I can still remember every detail of that moment. The way the fluorescent airport lights made everything look cold and lifeless. The sound of rolling suitcases echoing through the corridor. The smell of coffee and pretzels from the nearby food court. And the feeling, that crushing, suffocating feeling of being completely and utterly disposable. Before I tell you how I went from that abandoned girl crying on an airport bench to discovering a truth that would change everything, let me ask you something. Have you ever been betrayed by someone who was supposed to love you unconditionally? Someone who was supposed to protect you no matter what? If you have, then you know exactly what I felt that day. And if you haven't, stick around, because what happened next will make you understand why some betrayals cut so deep they change who you are forever. Now, I need you to do something for me. Hit that like button right now and subscribe to this channel. Because trust me when I say this, you will want to see what happened when my mother returned from her luxury vacation expecting to find me waiting for her like nothing had happened. What she found instead was an empty room and a letter that would haunt her for years to come. My childhood with my mother started out like a fairy tale, or at least that is what I thought back then. I remember Saturday mornings at the neighborhood park, my mother pushing me on the swing so high I felt like I could touch the clouds. I remember my 7th birthday when she stayed up all night, making me a chocolate cake from scratch, even though it came out lopsided and the frosting was melting. We lived in a tiny 2-bedroom apartment that barely had enough space for both of us. But it felt like home because we were together. Everything I knew about family, about love, about security, it all came crashing down when I was 8 years old. I came home from school one Tuesday afternoon to find my parents sitting on opposite ends of our old couch, the space between them feeling like an ocean. The television was off. The apartment was silent except for the ticking of the clock on the wall. And I knew, even before they said anything, that something terrible was about to happen. "Elena, sweetheart, come sit down," my mother said, her voice shaking slightly. "Your father and I need to talk to you about something important." The words that followed were generic, rehearsed, and completely inadequate. Sometimes adults stop loving each other. That was it. That was all the explanation I got for why my entire world was being torn apart. No details. No real reasons, just a vague statement that left me with more questions than answers. That night, I cried myself to sleep clutching my stuffed bunny, Mr. Whiskers, while I listened to my parents argue through the thin walls of our apartment. Their voices were muffled but angry, and I caught words like custody and support payments and lawyer, words that made my stomach hurt even though I did not fully understand what they meant. The divorce was finalized within 6 months. My mother got primary custody, which meant I would live with her and see my father on weekends. At least that was the plan. But plans have a way of falling apart, especially when one parent decides the other is not worth the effort anymore. At first, my father came every other weekend like he was supposed to. He would pick me up on Friday evening, and we would go to his new apartment across town. It was small and barely furnished, but he tried to make it special for me. We would order pizza, watch movies, and he would read me bedtime stories just like he used to. Those weekends were my lifeline, the only time I felt like I still had a complete family, even if it was scattered across 2 different homes. But slowly, gradually, those visits started to change. My father would call on Thursday night to say something had come up at work and he could not make it this weekend. Then it would be 2 weekends in a row. Then a month would go by without seeing him. The phone calls became shorter and more awkward. The birthday cards stopped coming. And by the time I was 11 years old, my father had become nothing more than a fading memory and a name on my birth certificate. My mother told me he had moved on, that he had his own life now and did not have time for me anymore. "Some men just are not cut out to be fathers," she would say with a dismissive wave of her hand whenever I asked about him. And I believed her. Why would not I? She was my mother. She was supposed to tell me the truth. Life as a single-parent household was hard. My mother worked 2 jobs just to keep us afloat. During the day, She waited tables at a busy diner downtown, coming home smelling like coffee and grease. At night, she cleaned office buildings, leaving after I went to bed and returning just before I woke up for school. I learned to be independent quickly. I learned to heat up frozen dinners in the microwave, to do my own laundry, to let myself into our apartment with the key I wore on a string around my neck. Money was always tight. I wore hand-me-down clothes from the thrift store and learned not to ask for things I knew we could not afford. Birthday parties were small and simple. Christmas gifts were practical rather than fun. But despite all of that, despite the struggle and the exhaustion, I never doubted that I was loved. I never doubted that I was important. I never doubted that my mother would always choose me first. God, I was so wrong. Everything changed when I turned 13. That was the year my mother met Richard. Richard was a regular customer at the diner where my mother worked. He was a businessman, the kind of man who wore expensive suits and left $20 tips on $15 meals. My mother came home one evening with a dreamy look in her eyes, talking about this charming man who had asked for her section 3 days in a row. He looks at me like I am someone special, she told me that night as we ate mac and cheese from a box. Like I am more than just a waitress struggling to make rent. Their romance happened fast. Too fast. Within 3 months, Richard was taking my mother to fancy restaurants I had only seen in movies. Within 6 months, he had proposed with a diamond ring so huge it looked almost fake on my mother's tired hands. And within a year, we were packing up our tiny apartment and moving into Richard's massive house in the suburbs. The house was like something out of a magazine. 6 bedrooms, 4 bathrooms, a swimming pool in the backyard, a home theater in the basement, a kitchen with granite countertops and stainless steel appliances that my mother did not even know how to use at first. It was everything we had never had, everything we had struggled without for so long. And my mother looked at it like she had finally won the lottery. But the house came with 3 additional people. Richard's children from his first marriage. There was Olivia, who was 15, the same age as me. She had perfectly straight blonde hair, designer clothes, and a look of permanent disdain whenever she glanced my way. There was Marcus, who was 13, quiet and withdrawn, spending most of his time in his room playing video games and ignoring everyone else. And there was little Sophie, who was 11, and who seemed nice at first until she realized that being mean to me earned her points with her older siblings. From day one, it was crystal clear that I did not belong in this family. I was the outsider, the intruder, the reminder that their father had chosen someone beneath their social class. Richard was polite to me, but distant. He would ask me generic questions about school, nod politely at my answers, and then immediately turn his attention back to his own children. At family dinners, which happened every night at exactly 6 o'clock, Richard and my mother would discuss things I knew nothing about. Country club memberships, private school applications, vacation homes in exotic locations. When I tried to contribute to the conversation, sharing something I had learned in class or a book I had read, I would get polite smiles and nods before the conversation shifted right back to Olivia's tennis tournament or Marcus's debate club trophy. What hurt the most was watching my mother transform into someone I barely recognized. The woman who used to shop at thrift stores and cut coupons from the Sunday newspaper was now talking casually about designer brands and spa days. She colored her hair, whitened her teeth, and started dressing like the other wealthy wives in Richard's social circle. She began referring to our old life, our real life, as the struggle years, saying it with an uncomfortable laugh whenever Richard's friends were around. Like our poverty had been some temporary inconvenience rather than our reality. It felt like she was erasing me. Erasing us, erasing everything we had been together. I tried so hard to fit in with my new step-siblings. I really did. I offered to help Olivia with her algebra homework since I was good at math. I complimented Sophie's drawings and asked if she wanted to hang out. I asked Marcus about his video games, trying to find common ground. But every attempt was met with cold politeness at best and outright hostility at worst. The worst moment came about 3 months after we moved in. I was walking past Olivia's room when I heard her on the phone with one of her friends. "Yeah, my dad's new wife is okay, I guess," she was saying. But she came with baggage, this weird, awkward daughter who does not fit in at all. It is so embarrassing when my friends come over. I stood frozen in the hallway, her words hitting me like physical blows. Baggage. That is what I was to them. Not a person, not a sister, just unwanted baggage that came attached to the woman their father had married. That night, I cried into my pillow and wondered what I had done wrong. Why was not I good enough? Why did not they like me? What was so terrible about me that I could not even get my own mother's new family to accept me? As spring turned into summer, Richard announced at dinner one evening that he was planning a special family vacation. 2 weeks in Bali, staying at an exclusive resort with private villas and personal butlers. He described it with so much excitement, talking about pristine beaches, infinity pools, and world-class restaurants. "This will be perfect bonding time for our family," Richard said, reaching over to squeeze my mother's hand. "Just the 6 of us, away from all the stress and distractions of daily life. 6 of us." He said 6. My heart leapt with unexpected hope. Maybe, just maybe, this vacation would be the turning point. Maybe away from school and social pressures and daily routines, my step-family would finally see me as more than just baggage. Maybe my mother would remember that I existed, that I mattered, that I was supposed to be her priority. The weeks leading up to the trip were filled with excited preparation. Richard made reservations at expensive restaurants. Olivia and Sophie went shopping for new swimsuits and cover-ups, coming home with bags full of designer beachwear. My mother bought herself a whole new vacation wardrobe, trying on outfits and asking Richard for his opinion like a teenager getting ready for prom. I waited for my mother to take me shopping too. I waited for her to ask what I needed for the trip. But the invitation never came. When I finally worked up the courage to ask if we could go buy me a new swimsuit since my old one was too small, she barely looked up from her phone. "You have plenty of clothes, Elena," she said dismissively. "We do not need to spend money on things you do not need." I wanted to point out that she had just spent $3,000 on her own vacation wardrobe. I wanted to ask why Olivia and Sophie got shopping trips, but I did not. But I stayed quiet, swallowing my hurt and using my babysitting money to buy myself a simple blue one-piece swimsuit from Target. About a week before the trip, I started noticing strange things. Small details that did not quite add up. When Richard laid out all the travel documents on the kitchen counter, organizing passports and boarding passes and hotel confirmations, I noticed there were only 5 passports in the stack. When the family discussed seating arrangements on the plane, no one mentioned where I would sit. When my mother packed her suitcase, she did not ask me if I had packed mine yet. One evening, about 4 days before departure, I was walking past my mother and Richard's bedroom when I heard them talking. The door was slightly open, and their voices carried into the hallway. "What about the arrangements for Elena?" Richard asked, his tone businesslike. "All taken care of," my mother replied, and something in her voice made my blood run cold. "She will not be a problem." I stood frozen outside their door, my heart pounding. What did that mean? What arrangements? Why would I be a problem? I knocked softly and pushed the door open. "Mom, can I talk to you?" She looked up from her suitcase, her expression annoyed at the interruption. "What is it, Elena?" "I am busy packing. I just heard you and Richard talking about arrangements for me." "What did you mean?" Her face smoothed into a fake smile. "Oh, honey, just boring travel details. Nothing for you to worry about." "But I need to know what time we are leaving and where my boarding pass is and—" "Elena," she interrupted, her voice sharp. I said, "Do not worry about it. Now please, I have a lot to do before this trip. Go do your homework or something." I left her room feeling unsettled, but I pushed the worry down. I told myself I was overthinking things. I told myself my mother would not do anything to hurt me. I told myself that despite everything, despite the distance and the changes, she was still my mother, and she would still protect me. I told myself a lot of lies that week. The morning of departure arrived in a chaos of last-minute packing and excited chatter. Suitcases were loaded into Richard's black SUV. Olivia was taking selfies in her travel outfit. Sophie was bouncing with excitement. Marcus was already wearing his headphones, ready for the long flight. And my mother was checking and rechecking her carry-on bag, making sure she had her passport, her sunglasses, her pills. I stood in the foyer with my small suitcase, noticeably smaller than everyone else's, waiting for someone to tell me it was time to go. My stomach felt tight with anxiety. Something was wrong. I could feel it in the air, in the way my mother kept avoiding my eyes, in the way Richard seemed to be rushing everyone along. "Okay, everyone in the car," Richard announced. "We need to get to the airport with plenty of time before our international flight." I grabbed my suitcase and headed toward the car, but as I reached for the door handle, my mother stopped me with a hand on my arm. "Actually, Elena, ride in the back row," she said quickly. "There is more room back there." So I climbed into the very back of the SUV, separated from everyone else by the middle row of seats where Olivia and Sophie sat, whispering and giggling together. Marcus had claimed the front passenger seat. My mother sat next to Richard in the driver's seat, and I sat alone in the back, watching the familiar streets of our neighborhood disappear as we drove toward the airport. During the drive, nobody spoke to me. Not once. It was like I was not even there, like I was already gone. The international terminal was absolutely chaotic when we arrived. Travelers everywhere, dragging suitcases and checking departure boards and calling out to family members. Different languages mixing together into an incomprehensible noise. The smell of coffee and anxiety heavy in the air. Richard led our group through the crowds with the confidence of someone who traveled often, his hand on my mother's lower back, guiding her. I trailed behind, struggling to keep up while pulling my suitcase around people and obstacles. Several times they got so far ahead that I almost lost sight of them. Each time, panic would spike in my chest until I spotted my mother's new designer purse bobbing through the crowd. When we finally reached the check-in counter, Richard stepped forward with a stack of passports and a confirmation number. The airline attendant, a young woman with her hair pulled back in a severe bun, began processing the documents. 5 passengers to Bali, she confirmed, looking at her computer screen. 5. She said 5. "Excuse me," I said, stepping forward. My voice came out smaller than I intended. "I think there is a mistake. I am traveling too." The attendant looked confused. She glanced at her screen again, then at Richard. "I only have 5 passengers listed on this reservation, sir." Richard cleared his throat, not meeting my eyes. "Yes, that is correct. 5 passengers." The world seemed to tilt sideways. "What? No, there must be some mistake." "Mom?" My mother took my elbow, her grip firm, and guided me away from the counter. Away from Richard and the kids. Away from the line of travelers, watching our family drama unfold. She pulled me toward a quiet corner near a closed gift shop, her face set in an expression I had never seen before. It was cold, detached, like she was dealing with an annoying business transaction rather than her own daughter. "Listen, Elena," she said, her voice artificially calm. "There has been a change of plans. You are not coming with us to Bali." The words did not make sense at first. My brain could not process what she was saying. "What do you mean?" "Of course I am coming. We have been planning this for weeks," she sighed, the kind of sigh you make when something is mildly inconvenient. "Richard thinks this trip should be just for him and his children. A chance for us to really bond as a new family without any—" She paused, searching for the right word. "Complications." "Complications?" My voice was rising now, drawing glances from passing travelers. "I am your daughter, not a complication." "Keep your voice down," she hissed, glancing nervously back toward where Richard and the others were waiting. "Do not make a scene, Elena. This is hard enough as it is. Hard for who?" I wanted to scream. "Hard for you? You are the one abandoning me." But before I could say anything else, my mother was digging in her designer purse. She pulled out a stack of $20 bills and shoved them into my hand. "Here is $200. That should be more than enough. Just take an Uber back to the house. The refrigerator is fully stocked, and there is more money in the kitchen drawer for pizza or whatever you need." I stared at the money in my hand like it was something alien. Like it was evidence of a crime I could not quite comprehend yet. "You are leaving me? Here? At the airport? Alone?" "You are 15 years old, Elena. You are mature enough to handle 2 weeks by yourself. Think of it as a grown-up responsibility. I do not even have a house key. You took my key last week to make a copy and never gave it back." She waved her hand dismissively. "Mrs. Henderson next door has the spare. Just knock on her door when you get home." This could not be happening. This could not be real. Any second now, my mother would laugh and say she was joking, that of course I was coming on the trip, that this was just some kind of terrible test. But she did not laugh. She did not smile. She just stood there, shifting her weight impatiently, glancing back at Richard every few seconds, like she was worried he would leave without her. "Mom, please," I begged, and I hated how my voice cracked. I hated how desperate I sounded. "Please do not do this. I will be good. I will stay out of everyone's way. I will not complain about anything. Just please do not leave me." For just a second, something flickered across her face. Guilt, maybe, or regret, but it disappeared as quickly as it came, replaced by that cold, detached mask. "Richard is waiting," she said firmly. "This vacation is important for our future, Elena, for our family's future. Sometimes we all have to make sacrifices for the greater good. A sacrifice is missing a school dance or giving up your favorite dessert," I shot back, anger finally breaking through my shock. "This is not a sacrifice. This is abandonment." She flinched at the word but recovered quickly. "Do not be so dramatic. It is just 2 weeks. You will barely notice we are gone." She leaned in and pressed a quick, dry kiss to my forehead. The kind of kiss you give to a distant relative at a holiday gathering, not to your own child. "I will call you when we land," she said. Then she turned and walked away. I stood there, frozen, watching her click across the airport floor in her new designer heels. Watching her rejoin Richard and the children, watching her laugh at something Richard said, like she had not just destroyed her daughter's world. Watching her go through the security checkpoint without once looking back. Olivia did look back, though. Just once, and when our eyes met, she smiled. Not a friendly smile, a victorious one. Like she had won some competition I had not even known we were playing. Then they were gone. Disappeared through security, heading toward a gate I would never reach. Boarding a plane I was never meant to be on, and I was alone. I do not know how long I stood in that spot, clutching $200 in cash and trying to understand what had just happened. Around me, the airport continued its normal chaos. Families saying goodbye, travelers rushing to catch flights, announcements echoing from overhead speakers. The world kept moving like nothing had changed, even though my entire life had just shattered into a million pieces. The tears came without warning, hot and fast and unstoppable. They poured down my face as I stumbled toward a nearby bench and collapsed onto it. My chest felt tight, like someone was squeezing my lungs. My hands were shaking so badly, I almost dropped the money my mother had shoved at me like I was some kind of beggar on the street. $200. That is what she thought I was worth. That is what 15 years of being her daughter added up to in the end. I tried calling her cell phone. Once, twice, 5 times. Every call went straight to voicemail. I texted her, my fingers fumbling on the screen. "Please come back. I am sorry. Whatever I did wrong, I am sorry. Please do not leave me here." The message showed as delivered but never as read. She had already turned off her phone, or blocked me, or simply decided I was not worth responding to. I tried again with a different approach. "Having fun abandoning your child at the airport? Hope the first-class upgrade was worth it." Still no response. She was gone, really truly gone. And she was not coming back. An hour passed, then 2. I watched the departure board as their flight status changed from boarding to departed. Each update felt like another knife twisting in my gut. They were really gone. My mother was really on that plane, flying to Bali without me, probably sipping champagne and laughing with Richard while I sat on a bench in an airport, alone and abandoned. I did not know what to do. I had never felt so lost in my entire life. A security officer approached me around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. He was middle-aged with kind eyes and a concerned expression. "Miss, are you okay?" he asked gently. "You have been sitting here for quite a while. Are you waiting for someone?" I wiped my face quickly, trying to compose myself. "Yes, sir. My ride is just running late. Traffic." He did not look convinced. "Do you have someone you can call? A parent or guardian?" The irony of that question almost made me laugh. Or maybe cry harder. I could not tell anymore. "My mom is on her way," I lied, avoiding his eyes. "She texted me. She will be here soon." He studied me for another moment, clearly skeptical, but finally nodded. "All right, but you cannot stay here all night, okay? If your ride does not show up in the next few hours, come find me or another officer. We can help you." After he walked away, I realized how precarious my situation actually was. $200 would not last long. Even if I managed to get an Uber back to the house, which would probably cost at least $60 from the airport, I would be stuck there for 2 weeks with no transportation and limited money for food. And I did not even have a key to get inside. The thought of knocking on Mrs. Henderson's door to ask for the spare key made me feel sick with humiliation. What would I tell her? That my mother had abandoned me to go on vacation? That I was not important enough to bring along? The shame of it burned in my chest like acid. As the afternoon stretched into evening, I migrated from bench to bench, trying to avoid security's attention. I bought a bottle of water and a bag of chips from a vending machine, forcing myself to eat even though everything tasted like cardboard. The airport slowly transformed as the day travelers departed and evening flights began boarding. The energy shifted from frantic morning chaos to tired evening exhaustion. Around 7 o'clock, I found myself in an airport restaurant, one of the few still open at that hour. I sat at the counter and ordered the cheapest thing on the menu, a small side of French fries, trying to make my money last as long as possible. The server, a woman in her 50s with warm eyes and graying hair, brought my food and then paused, studying my face. "Honey, are you all right?" she asked, her voice gentle. "You look like you have been crying." Something about her kindness, after hours of feeling invisible and unwanted, nearly broke me all over again. "I am fine," I managed, my voice hoarse. "Just a really long day," she did not push, just gave me a sympathetic smile. A few minutes later, she returned with a chocolate milkshake I had not ordered. "On the house," she said with a wink. "Whatever you are going through, sugar and chocolate never hurt." That small act of kindness from a complete stranger did what hours of crying alone had not done. It made me realize that I could not give up. I could not just sit in this airport forever, waiting for a mother who was never coming back. I needed help. I needed someone who would actually care that a 15-year-old girl had been abandoned with nothing but $200 and a broken heart. I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts, looking for anyone who might help me. Most of my old friends from before the move had drifted away. My mother's friends, the few I had numbers for, either did not respond or claimed they were out of town. I was running out of options. Then I saw it. A name I had not looked at in years. A name I had almost deleted a dozen times but could never quite bring myself to erase completely. Dad. My father. The man my mother had told me wanted nothing to do with me. The man who had supposedly moved on and forgotten all about his daughter. The man I had not spoken to since I was 12 years old. What if she had been lying? The thought hit me suddenly, powerfully. What if everything my mother had told me about my father was as false as her promise to always put me first? What if he had not abandoned me at all? My hand trembled as I hovered over the call button. What if I was wrong? What if he really did not want me? What if this was just setting myself up for another rejection? Another abandonment? But sitting in that airport restaurant, completely alone with nowhere else to turn, I realized I had nothing left to lose. I locked myself in a bathroom stall for privacy. I took a deep breath, and I pressed call. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. I was about to hang up, convinced this was a terrible mistake, when a deep voice answered. "Hello?" That voice. I remembered that voice. It was older, maybe a little rougher than I remembered, but it was still my dad's voice. Hearing it after all these years made my throat tight with emotion. "Hello? Is someone there?" He asked again. "Dad," I whispered. "It is Elena." There was a pause. A long, terrible pause that made me think maybe I had made a mistake after all. Maybe he did not even remember who I was. Maybe, Elena? His voice changed completely, filling with shock and concern. "Baby girl, is that really you?" The relief that flooded through me was overwhelming. He remembered me. He called me baby girl, the nickname he used to use when I was little. "Dad, I need help," I said, and then everything came pouring out. The remarriage, the move, the stepfamily, the vacation, the airport, the $200. All of it spilled out in a rush of words, interrupted by sobs and hiccups. By the time I finished, I was crying so hard I could barely breathe. "She left you alone? At an international airport?" My father's voice had gone hard, angry in a way I had never heard before. "Where are you right now? Are you safe?" "I'm at the airport still." I did not know what else to do. I thought maybe, listen to me very carefully, Elena, he interrupted, his voice firm but not unkind. I need you to tell me exactly which airport you are at. Can you do that for me? I told him. Okay, good. Now listen, I'm coming to get you myself. It is going to take me about 3 hours to reach you, maybe a little less if traffic is good. Can you stay safe until then? You are coming? I could not believe what I was hearing. But you do not have to do that. I can just take an Uber home or… Elena, he said, and something in his voice made me stop. I am coming to get you. There is no discussion about this. You are my daughter, and you need me, and I will move heaven and earth to get to you. Do you understand? I nodded even though he could not see me. Okay, now here is what I need you to do. Go to the customer service desk for whatever airline your mother was flying with. Tell them your situation. I am going to call ahead right now and make sure they take care of you until I arrive. They will have a safe place for you to wait. Can you do that? Yes. Good. I will be there as soon as I possibly can. Do not leave the airport. Do not go anywhere with anyone except the airline staff. Stay on the phone with me until you reach the customer service desk. He stayed on the line as I made my way through the terminal, his voice a constant, reassuring presence. When I reached the desk and explained my situation, the airline staff immediately became concerned and helpful. My father spoke with them briefly, giving them information to verify his identity. We will take good care of her, Mr. Hartley, the customer service manager assured him. She can wait in our private lounge. We will keep an eye on her until you arrive. They led me to a quiet room with comfortable chairs, magazines, and a television. They brought me a sandwich and juice. They checked on me every 20 minutes, and they never once made me feel like I was a burden or an inconvenience. Unfortunately, this happens more often than you would think, one of the staff members told me quietly. Parents changing plans last minute and leaving kids to figure things out on their own. You did the right thing by calling your father. The 3-hour wait felt endless. I kept checking my phone, watching the minutes tick by with agonizing slowness. Part of me still could not believe my father was really coming. Part of me was terrified he would change his mind, realize I was not worth the effort, and call to say he could not make it after all. But he did not call to cancel. Instead, he sent me text messages every 20 minutes. Still on my way. Traffic is moving. Hang in there. About 90 minutes out. You are going to be okay. Almost there. Cannot wait to see you. Cannot wait to see you. My mother had not said anything like that to me in years. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, a voice came over the PA system. Elena Hartley, please come to the information desk. Elena Hartley to the information desk, please. My heart leapt into my throat as I grabbed my small suitcase. An airline employee escorted me through a maze of corridors and security checkpoints, leading me to what appeared to be a private terminal area. Through glass doors, I could see the tarmac outside, and walking across that tarmac, coming down the stairs of a sleek private jet, was my father. He looked different from how I remembered. Taller maybe, or maybe I was just smaller in my memories. His dark hair was streaked with silver at the temples now, giving him a distinguished look. He wore a business suit that looked expensive, and he carried himself with a confidence I did not recall from my childhood. But his eyes. When his eyes found mine through the glass doors, they were exactly as I remembered, kind, warm, filled with love. For a moment, we both just stood there, staring at each other across the distance. He looked at me like he could not quite believe I was real, and I looked at him like he was some kind of miracle. Then he walked toward me, closing the distance in quick strides. He stopped just short of embracing me, uncertainty written across his face, like he was not sure if he had the right to hug me after all these years. Elena, he said, his voice thick with emotion. I cannot believe it is really you. You have grown so much, I did not know what to say. Part of me wanted to throw myself into his arms like I used to when I was little, when he would come home from work, and I would run to the door to greet him. But another part of me, the wounded part that had been abandoned by both parents at different times, held back. He must have sensed my hesitation because his face fell slightly. I am so sorry, he said quietly, his voice breaking. For everything. For not being there. For not fighting harder to stay in your life. For letting you think I did not want you. I am so sorry, baby girl. Something about that apology, the rawness and sincerity in his voice, broke through the last of my defenses. The tears came again, but different this time. Not tears of abandonment and betrayal, but tears of relief and recognition. "She told me you did not want to see me anymore," I choked out. "She said you had moved on, that you had your own life and I was not part of it." His face darkened with anger. "That was never true. Not for a single second of a single day. Elena, I never stopped trying to reach you. I never stopped wanting you in my life." He opened his arms tentatively, and this time I did not hesitate. I stepped forward and let him wrap me in an embrace that felt like coming home after being lost for years. He held me tight while I sobbed into his shoulder, years of confusion and hurt pouring out of me all at once. "I have got you," he murmured, his hand stroking my hair like he used to when I was small and had a nightmare. "You are safe now. I have got you, and I am never letting you go again." We stood like that for several minutes, both of us crying, both of us trying to process the fact that we had found each other again. When we finally pulled apart, he kept one arm around my shoulders, like he was afraid I might disappear if he let go completely. "Let us get you out of here," he said gently. "We can talk properly once we are on the plane." The private jet was unlike anything I had ever seen outside of movies. Plush cream-colored leather seats, polished wood tables, soft lighting that made everything feel warm and comfortable. A flight attendant greeted us with a friendly smile and offered me a selection of drinks and snacks. I chose a seat by the window, and my father sat across from me, his eyes never leaving my face, like he was trying to memorize every detail. "Is this your plane?" I asked, still trying to wrap my mind around everything. He smiled, a hint of embarrassment crossing his features. "Technically, it belongs to the company. I am the CEO now." "CEO?" I echoed, completely shocked. My mother had always described my father as barely scraping by financially, struggling to make ends meet, sometimes late with child support payments. "Of Hartley Technologies," he explained. "It has been a successful few years. We develop software for medical diagnostics. The company took off about 5 years ago, and things have grown rapidly since then." 5 years ago, right around the time my mother claimed he had stopped caring about me entirely. As the plane took off, my father leaned forward, his expression turning serious. "Elena, I need you to understand something. I have been trying to contact you for years. Birthday cards, Christmas gifts, phone calls, all of it. When your mother remarried and moved without telling me, I lost track of you completely. I hired private investigators to find your new address. I filed motions with the court that somehow kept getting delayed or lost in the system." I stared at him, my mind reeling. "But Mom said you barely paid child support. She said we were struggling because you would not help us." His jaw tightened. "I have been sending child support and additional money every single month since the divorce. Far more than the court ordered. Money you clearly never saw." He pulled a briefcase from under his seat and removed a thick folder, handing it to me carefully. Inside were copies of canceled checks, all made out to my mother. Hundreds of them, each one for amounts that made my eyes widen. There were also court documents showing petition after petition for visitation rights, all filed by my father, all opposed by my mother with various excuses. And there were records of attempted phone calls, emails to my school that had apparently never been forwarded to me, even letters sent to our old address that had been returned as undeliverable. "I do not show you this to hurt you," my father said gently, "but you deserve to know the truth. Your mother has been deliberately keeping us apart. I thought about all those years eating ramen noodles for dinner because we could not afford anything else. The times I wore shoes with holes in them because we could not buy new ones. The Christmases with barely any presents because money was tight. All while my mother was cashing checks from my father that could have paid for everything we needed and more. Why would she do this?" I whispered, my voice breaking. "Why would she take your money but keep you away from me?" My father sighed heavily. "I think after the divorce, your mother struggled with a lot of resentment. When my first business venture failed and we were barely making ends meet, she saw me as a failure. She wanted security and status more than she wanted a partnership. After we split, the company I had been working on finally took off. Suddenly, I had the financial success she had always wanted, but she was not part of it anymore. I think keeping us apart was partly revenge and partly about controlling the narrative. What do you mean? If she admitted I was successful and trying to be in your life, she would have had to explain why she was keeping us apart. It was easier to paint me as the deadbeat dad who did not care. That way, she was the victim and the hero, struggling alone to raise you. The manipulation of it all made me feel sick. How many times had I defended my mother to myself, made excuses for her coldness, blamed myself for not being enough to make her happy? And all along, she had been deliberately destroying my relationship with my father while taking his money and pretending to be destitute. I kept your room ready, my father said suddenly, breaking through my dark thoughts. His voice was soft, almost embarrassed. All these years, I kept a room ready in my house just in case, just hoping that somehow, someday, you would come back to me. That simple statement broke something open inside my chest. While my mother had been trying to erase my father from my life, he had been keeping a space for me in his home and his heart. Where do you live? I asked. Seattle. I moved there about 6 years ago when the company headquarters relocated. It is beautiful there, right on the water, Seattle. That explained why my mother had always been so vague about my father's location. She had probably hoped I would never find out he was just a few hours away, close enough to be part of my life if she had not worked so hard to prevent it. The flight passed in a blur of conversation. We talked about everything and nothing. He told me about his company, about the work they were doing to make medical diagnostics more accessible. I told him about school, about the books I loved, about the isolation I had felt in Richard's house. There were awkward pauses and moments where we both cried, but underneath it all was a current of genuine connection. When we landed in Seattle, a car was waiting. As we drove through the city toward his home, I pressed my face against the window, taking in the beauty of the place. The water sparkled in the evening light. Mountains rose in the distance. Everything felt clean and new and full of possibility. We turned onto a private road that wound up a hillside, and then his house came into view. It took my breath away. A modern structure of glass and stone, perched on a cliff overlooking the ocean. It was stunning but not showy. Elegant but somehow warm. "Home sweet home," my father said, watching my reaction carefully. "I hope you will be comfortable here. I hope you will want to stay." A woman named Linda met us at the door. My father quickly introduced her as his executive assistant who had helped prepare for my arrival. She was efficient and kind, giving me a warm smile before departing for the evening. My father gave me a tour of the house. Every room was more beautiful than the last. A gourmet kitchen, a library with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a home gym with a view of the water, a theater room with the most comfortable seats I had ever seen. But the room that made me stop in my tracks was the one he had kept ready for me. It was painted a soft lavender, my favorite color when I was little. Large windows overlooked the ocean, with a window seat perfect for reading. A beautiful bed with the softest-looking comforter I had ever seen. A desk and bookshelf. Everything I could possibly need, but what caught my eye was the dresser. On top of it, arranged chronologically, were wrapped presents. Birthday presents and Christmas presents, labeled with my name and the year they were meant for. Every single year since he had lost contact with me. Are those... I could not finish the question. My father nodded, his eyes glistening with unshed tears. I could not deliver them, but I could not bear not to buy them either. Every birthday, every Christmas, I would go shopping and imagine what you might like at that age. Then I would wrap them and put them here, hoping that someday you would come home and open them. I moved closer, my fingers trembling as I touched the wrapped packages. There were so many of them, years and years of birthdays and holidays, represented by gifts I had never received. Next to the presents was a photo album labeled simply Elena. With shaking hands, I opened it. Inside were photos he had somehow managed to collect. School pictures my mother must have sent in the early years after the divorce, before she cut off all contact. A newspaper clipping of me receiving an academic award in 6th grade. A blurry photo that appeared to have been taken from a distance, showing me leaving my old school. "You kept track of me," I whispered. "I tried," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "Your mother blocked me at every turn, but I never stopped trying. I never stopped hoping. I never stopped loving you, Elena. Not for one single day." That night, we ordered dinner from a local restaurant, neither of us ready to tackle cooking. We ate on the deck, overlooking the water, the sound of waves breaking against the cliff below, providing a soothing soundtrack. The conversation flowed more easily now, the initial awkwardness giving way to genuine connection. "What happens now?" I asked eventually. "I mean with Mom, with custody, with everything." My father was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "That depends on what you want, Elena. You are old enough that the court will listen to your preferences. If you want to stay here with me, I will fight for full custody. If you want to go back to your mother, I will support that too. Though I hope you will at least allow me to remain in your life this time." "I do not want to go back," I said immediately. The thought of returning to that house, to Richard's cold politeness and my step-siblings' hostility and my mother's indifference, made my stomach turn. "I want to stay here, with you. If that is okay?" His face lit up with joy and relief. "It is more than okay. It is everything I have been hoping for. But what about school? And my stuff? Everything I own is still at Mom's house." "We will figure it all out," he assured me. "Tomorrow, I will have my attorney start the custody proceedings. We will arrange to retrieve your belongings. We will get you enrolled in a good school here. Whatever you need, we will make it happen." That night, lying in the softest bed I had ever experienced, in a room that had been waiting for me all these years, I felt something I had not felt in a very long time. Safe, wanted, home. The next morning, I woke up disoriented, forgetting for a moment where I was. Then everything came rushing back, and I sat up, taking in my new bedroom in the clear light of day. It was even more beautiful than I remembered from the night before. Sunlight streamed through the large windows, casting warm patterns across the pale lavender walls. After showering in the ensuite bathroom, which had a rainfall showerhead and more luxury toiletries than I had ever owned in my life, I ventured downstairs. I found my father in the kitchen, attempting to make pancakes with questionable success. "Good morning," he said, looking up with a smile that turned sheepish as he gestured to the misshapen pancake in the pan. I thought I would make us breakfast, but my cooking skills apparently have not improved over the years. A memory surfaced suddenly. Sunday mornings when I was little, my father attempting pancakes while my mother slept in. They were always oddly shaped, sometimes burned on one side, but he served them with such pride that I never complained. "I remember your pancakes," I said, sliding onto a stool at the kitchen island. "You used to make smiley faces with chocolate chips." His entire face lit up. "You remember that? You were so young." "Some things stay with you," I replied, accepting the plate he offered. After breakfast, my father's attorney arrived. Judith Bennett was a distinguished woman in her 50s with sharp eyes and a kind smile. She listened carefully as I recounted everything that had happened, taking notes and asking clarifying questions. "What your mother did constitutes child abandonment under state law," she explained in a professional but gentle tone. "Leaving a minor without proper supervision or care arrangements is illegal, regardless of her intentions. Additionally, the financial misconduct regarding child support payments is a serious matter." "I do not want to get my mom in trouble," I said quickly, even though part of me did want her to face consequences. "I just want to be safe. I want to stay with my dad." "That is completely understandable," Judith assured me. "Our primary goal will be securing permanent custody for your father. The criminal aspects are separate, and frankly, the court may not pursue them unless you want to press charges, which you are under no obligation to do." Over the next few days, my father showed me the extensive documentation he had kept over the years. Every check he had sent my mother, every court filing seeking visitation, every attempted phone call logged and dated, every email to my school that had gone unanswered. He had kept meticulous records, never giving up hope that someday he might need this evidence to prove he had never abandoned me. "Why did you keep all of this?" I asked, overwhelmed by the sheer volume of documentation. "Because I knew your mother was lying," he said simply. "I knew that someday, somehow the truth would come out. And when it did, I wanted to be able to prove to you, and to anyone else who mattered, that I never stopped fighting for you." The week after I arrived in Seattle, we received the first call from my mother. She was back from Bali, and according to the frantic voicemails she left, She had discovered my empty room and found the house key and letter I had left behind. I sat with my father and Judith in his home office, listening to the voicemails on speakerphone. Elena, where are you? Why is your room empty? This is not funny. Call me immediately. Her voice was sharp, angry, with no trace of concern for my well-being. The next message was different. Elena, sweetie, please call me. I am worried about you. Whatever you think happened at the airport, we can talk about it. Just come home. The third message was when she made the connection. I just spoke to your father's attorney. How could you do this to me, Elena? After everything I have sacrificed for you? After all the years I raised you alone? You are going to regret this. Call me, now. The final message was the most manipulative of all. Baby, please come home. I miss you so much. I love you. We can work this out. Do not let your father turn you against me. You are my daughter. You belong with me. I felt my father tense beside me as we listened. When the messages ended, he turned to Judith. Get a restraining order. I do not want her showing up here and upsetting Elena. Already drafted, Judith replied, pulling out paperwork. We just need Elena's signature as well, since she is over 14. I signed without hesitation. 3 days later, my mother showed up anyway. The security system alerted us to her presence at the gate. On the monitor, I could see her in Richard's luxury SUV, repeatedly pressing the intercom button. You do not have to see her, my father said immediately, putting a protective hand on my shoulder. We can have security turn her away. But I knew this confrontation was coming eventually. Part of me needed it, needed to face her and tell her exactly how much she had hurt me. I will talk to her, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. But I want you and Judith here with me. When we opened the front door, my mother's face cycled through relief, anger, and calculation in rapid succession. She was dressed expensively, her hair and makeup perfect, looking every bit like the wealthy suburban wife she had become. Elena. Thank God, she exclaimed, stepping forward as if to hug me. I took a step back instinctively, and her arms dropped to her sides. What is going on? She demanded. Why did you leave? Why are you here with him? The word him was loaded with venom. Perhaps we should continue this inside, my father suggested calmly, ever the diplomat. We sat in the living room, my father on one side of me, Judith on the other. My mother perched on the edge of a chair, her eyes darting around the space, taking in the obvious wealth and taste. So this is what this is about, she said with a brittle laugh. He has lured you away with money and promises of luxury. I should have known. That is not why I am here, I replied, struggling to keep my voice steady. I am here because you abandoned me at an airport. I am here because you have been lying to me about Dad for years. I am here because I found all the letters and cards and checks you hid from me. Her expression faltered. You went through my private things? They were addressed to me, I countered. They were mine to read. You had no right to keep them from me. I was protecting you, she snapped, her composure cracking. Protecting you from his inconsistency, from his broken promises. There were no broken promises, my father interjected quietly. Only your systematic campaign to erase me from our daughter's life. My mother turned on him, her face flushing with anger. You have no right to judge me. You have no idea what it was like, raising her alone while you were off becoming a millionaire. I sent child support every month, my father replied evenly. Far more than the court ordered. Money you apparently spent on yourself while telling Elena you were struggling financially. That is a lie. But even as she said it, her eyes flickered toward the folder of documentation sitting on the coffee table between us. We have copies of every check, Judith said calmly. Every single one cashed by you. We also have documentation of Mr. Hartley's repeated attempts to maintain contact with Elena, all of which you blocked or ignored. My mother seemed to deflate slightly, realizing she could not talk her way out of this with her usual manipulation tactics. The court will be very interested in this evidence, Judith continued, particularly combined with your recent act of child abandonment. I did not abandon her. My mother's voice rose defensively. I gave her money. I made arrangements. I gave her an opportunity for independence. The revisionist history made my blood boil. You left me alone at an international airport with $200 and no house key. You did not tell me the plan until you were walking away. You did not answer my calls or texts. How is that anything but abandonment? You are twisting what happened, she insisted weakly. We have security footage from the airport, my father said quietly. We have witness statements from airline staff. We have the text messages Elena sent you that you ignored. There is no twisting here, Karen, just facts, the color drained from my mother's face. You are building a case against me. You want to take my daughter and ruin my life. This is not about punishment, Judith explained patiently. This is about what is in Elena's best interest. She has expressed a clear desire to live with her father, and given the circumstances, the court will almost certainly honor that wish. My mother turned to me, tears streaming down her face now. Real tears or fake ones? With her I could never tell any more. Elena, please. I made a mistake. I am sorry. But you cannot leave me for him. We are family. We have been through everything together. We stopped being family when you decided Richard and his children were more important than me, I said, my voice quiet but firm. Maybe we stopped being family even before that, when you started lying about Dad and stealing his money while pretending we were poor. It was not like that, she protested. Then what was it like? I challenged. Help me understand why you would hide letters from my father. Why you would take his money but tell me he did not care about me. Why you would abandon me at an airport for a vacation with your new family. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Finally, she whispered, Richard thought it would be better if you stayed home. He said the resort was really for adults and kids who were used to that lifestyle. I was afraid of losing him if I pushed back. I was afraid of being alone and broke again. The raw honesty was somehow more painful than her lies. So you chose him over me. I chose security, she countered desperately. Do you have any idea what it is like to struggle the way we did? To worry every month about making rent? Richard offered us a better life. He offered you a better life, I corrected. I was just baggage you had to manage. Before she could respond, the front door opened and Richard himself walked in, his face tight with fury. My father stood immediately, his body language protective. How did you get past security? My father demanded. Richard ignored him, focusing on my mother. Karen, this has gone on long enough. Our lawyer said not to have any contact. You are making everything worse. Get in the car, now. My mother actually flinched at his tone, like a scolded child. The woman who had once been my mother, strong and independent despite our poverty, had become so diminished in her pursuit of status and security? I just wanted to see Elena, she said weakly. And now you have, Richard replied dismissively. Let us go before you damage our position further. As my mother rose to follow him, I called after her one last time. Is this really what you want, Mom? Someone who talks to you like that? Someone who made you choose between your daughter and your marriage? She paused, conflict evident in her expression. For just a moment, I thought maybe she would choose differently. Maybe she would realize what she was losing. But then Richard took her elbow firmly. Karen, car, now, and she went. Just like she had walked away at the airport, she walked away from me again, choosing security over her own child. After that confrontation, my father's legal team moved quickly. They filed for a restraining order, which was granted within 48 hours. A temporary custody arrangement was put in place while we awaited the full hearing. And slowly, with Judith's expert guidance, we began building the case for permanent custody. The hardest part was not the legal battles or the court proceedings. It was accepting the truth about my mother, accepting that she had chosen money and status over me, not just once, but repeatedly over years. Accepting that the struggles she had described, the poverty she had used as justification for so many things, had been at least partially fabricated. Accepting that my father, who I had believed had abandoned me, had actually been fighting for me all along. My father enrolled me in therapy with Dr. Sarah Chen, a psychologist who specialized in adolescent trauma and parental abandonment. Our first session was difficult. I cried through most of it, finally allowing myself to feel the full weight of what my mother had done. What you are experiencing is completely normal, Dr. Chen assured me. Anger, grief, relief, guilt, they can all coexist. You can be angry with your mother for what she did while still loving her. You can be grateful to be with your father while mourning the loss of the family structure you once had. Healing is not linear, Elena. There will be good days and bad days. I feel like I should hate her, I admitted. But I do not. I just feel sad. Sad for what we could have been. Sad that she could not love me the way I needed. That sadness is part of the grief process, Dr. Chen explained. You are mourning not just the mother you lost, but the mother you never really had. The one you deserved, but she was incapable of being. Those words stayed with me. My mother's limitations were not my fault. Her inability to love me unconditionally, to put me first, to choose me over wealth and status. Those were her failures, not mine. As summer turned to fall, my father began the process of enrolling me in Cascade Academy, one of Seattle's best private schools. I was nervous about starting at a new school, especially one where everyone had probably known each other for years. After being the outsider in Richard's house, the thought of being the outsider at school too was overwhelming. But to my surprise, Cascade Academy was different. Maybe it was because so many students came from complicated family situations like mine. Maybe it was because the school emphasized compassion and inclusivity as core values. Or maybe I was just lucky. Whatever the reason, I found myself making friends for the first time in years. Maya and Jordan, twins who shared my love of reading, adopted me into their friend group almost immediately. "You have good taste in books," Maya announced on my second day, noticing the worn copy of my favorite novel in my backpack. "Anyone who loves that series is automatically our friend." There was Kai, a talented artist who offered to teach me how to draw during lunch periods. And Priya, who played violin in the school orchestra and invited me to join the music program, even though I had no musical experience. Slowly, carefully, I began to lower the walls I had built around myself. I let these new friends see glimpses of my real personality, the parts of myself I had kept hidden for so long. And to my amazement, they liked what they saw. "You are different than when you first got here," Jordan commented one afternoon as we walked to the library. "More relaxed, more yourself." "I guess I am learning that not everyone has hidden agendas," I replied, surprising myself with the insight. Meanwhile, my relationship with my father deepened as we navigated the delicate balance of reconnecting after so many years apart. Sometimes the past and present aligned perfectly, like when he remembered my childhood obsession with stars and had a powerful telescope installed on the deck so we could stargaze together. Or when he discovered I still loved chocolate chip pancakes, even misshapen ones, and made them every Sunday morning. Other times, the years of separation created unexpected gaps. He did not know what my favorite movie was. I did not know he was allergic to shellfish. He had missed my first day of high school, my first crush, my first heartbreak. I had missed his company's major breakthrough, his move to Seattle, the years he spent building a life he hoped I would someday share. "I wish I had been there for all of it," he said one evening as we looked through old photos. "Your middle school graduation, your science fair projects, the day you got braces. We cannot get those years back," I told him, feeling oddly like the adult in the conversation. "But we have now. We have the future." He squeezed my hand, his eyes bright with unshed tears. "When did you get so wise?" "Trauma has its benefits," I joked, and the fact that I could joke about it at all felt like progress. 2 months after I moved in with my father, we made the trip to retrieve my belongings from my mother's house. She and Richard were still in residence, but per the court order, they had to allow me access to collect my personal items. My father hired a moving company and brought Judith along to document everything. Walking into that house felt surreal. It had only been a couple of months, but it felt like a lifetime ago that I had lived there. The place looked the same, but I saw it differently now. The family photos on the walls that barely included me. The expensive furniture that was for show rather than comfort. The coldness underneath all the luxury. My mother and Richard stayed in their bedroom while we worked, which was fine with me. I did not want to see them, did not want to hear whatever excuses or accusations they might have ready. My room looked exactly as I had left it. The letter I had written still sat on the stripped bed, though it looked like it had been read many times based on the creases. The house key sat beside it. "This was your room?" my father asked quietly, taking in the small space, the basic furniture, the lack of personal touches. "It is fine," I said automatically, the defensive response ingrained from years of being told I should be grateful. "No, Elena, it is not fine," he said gently. "You deserved so much better than this." As we packed my belongings, I found the box of keepsakes hidden in my desk drawer. Photos from before the divorce. A few birthday cards my father had sent before my mother cut off contact completely. And a small stuffed elephant he had won for me at a carnival when I was 5. "You kept these," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "I never really believed she was telling the truth about you," I admitted. "Not completely. Some part of me always knew." The most damaging discovery came when I searched my mother's home office. Among her files, I found financial records that confirmed everything. The large child support checks deposited regularly, court documents showing my father's repeated petitions for visitation, all opposed by my mother with fabricated excuses. And most damning of all, a draft letter to her attorney discussing strategies to minimize the father's influence while integrating into Richard's family. In that letter, I was referred to as a complication that needs to be carefully managed to ensure Richard's continued commitment. A complication. Not a daughter, not a child who needed love and stability, just a complication. By late afternoon, everything I wanted to keep was packed and loaded into the moving truck. I did not take much: clothes, books, a few pieces of jewelry that had belonged to my grandmother. I left behind anything my mother or Richard had given me. I did not want those things anymore. They felt tainted somehow, symbols of a life I was glad to leave behind. Before we left, I sat at my empty desk and wrote one final letter. "Mom," I began, the word feeling strange, both too intimate and not intimate enough. "I found the letters you hid, the financial records, the draft to your attorney where you called me a complication. I know the truth now about everything, about Dad's attempts to stay in my life, about the money, about your choices. I am not writing this to hurt you or to make you feel guilty, though you should feel guilty. I am writing because I need you to understand that I am choosing to live with Dad not as revenge, but because I deserve to be somewhere I am valued. Somewhere I am a priority, not an inconvenience. I hope someday you will understand the damage your choices have caused, not just to me but to yourself. Despite everything, I do not hate you, but I need to love myself enough to walk away." I left the letter on the bed, weighted down by the house key. A symbolic relinquishment of my place in this household. As we drove away, my father at the wheel, my belongings in the moving truck behind us, I felt a complex mixture of emotions. Grief for what could have been, relief that it was over, and hope, fragile but real, for the future I was now free to build. I did not look back at the house. Instead, I looked forward, toward Seattle, toward home. The custody hearing was scheduled for early October, about 4 months after that day at the airport. Those months had been transformative for me. I had settled into my new school, made genuine friends, and begun the long process of healing from years of manipulation and neglect. But as the hearing date approached, I found myself increasingly anxious. What if the judge does not believe me? I asked Dr. Chen during one of our sessions. What if they think I am just a teenager being dramatic? What if they make me go back? "The evidence your father has compiled is substantial," she reminded me gently. "Between the documentation of financial misconduct, the airport abandonment, and your own testimony about your experiences, the court will have a very clear picture of the situation." Still, I could not shake my nervousness. My mother had hired an expensive attorney, paid for by Richard, who was apparently very good at making bad parents look sympathetic. What if they managed to spin the narrative? What if somehow, impossibly, I ended up back in that house? The night before the hearing, my father found me on the deck, staring out at the ocean, but not really seeing it. "Hey," he said softly, sitting down beside me. "Talk to me. What is going on in that head of yours?" "I am scared," I admitted. "Scared that tomorrow everything could change. Scared that I might lose this." I gestured around us, but I meant more than just the house. I meant the safety, the security, the feeling of being wanted. He put his arm around my shoulders. "Elena, listen to me. No matter what happens tomorrow, I am not giving up. If by some crazy chance the court does not rule in our favor, we will appeal. We will fight. I will never stop fighting for you. Do you understand?" I nodded, leaning into his embrace. "You are my daughter," he continued, his voice fierce with love. "Nothing and no one is going to keep us apart again. Not your mother, not Richard, not any judge. We are a family now, and families do not give up on each other." The courthouse the next morning was intimidating. Security checkpoints, marble floors, the echo of footsteps and hushed conversations. Judith met us in the lobby, looking confident and professional in a tailored suit. "Remember," she briefed me, "answer questions honestly and clearly. Do not embellish, but do not minimize what you have experienced either. The judge will ask you about your preferences and your reasons. Be truthful." My mother arrived with Richard and her attorney, a sharp-eyed man in an expensive suit. She looked smaller somehow, more fragile than I remembered. When our eyes met across the lobby, she started toward me, but her attorney stopped her with a hand on her arm. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Wood paneling, rows of benches, the judge's seat elevated at the front. We took our places, my father and I on one side with Judith, my mother and her team on the other. Judge Patricia Morrison was a woman in her 60s with kind but shrewd eyes. She reviewed the case files in silence for several minutes while we all waited, the tension in the room thick enough to cut. Finally, she looked up. "This is a custody modification case with allegations of abandonment and financial misconduct. I have reviewed the preliminary documentation. Today, we will hear testimony from both parties and from Elena herself. Let us begin." My mother's attorney went first, trying to paint a picture of a struggling single mother who had done her best under difficult circumstances. He acknowledged the airport incident, but framed it as a miscommunication and a lapse in judgment during a stressful time. "My client admits she made a mistake," he argued. "But one mistake should not erase 15 years of devoted parenting. Ms. Williams has been Elena's primary caregiver since the divorce. She has provided for her daughter, given her a stable home, and made countless sacrifices to ensure Elena's well-being." Then it was my mother's turn to testify. She took the stand looking nervous, her hands trembling slightly as she was sworn in. Her attorney led her through a carefully constructed narrative. How hard she had worked after the divorce to provide for me. How she had struggled financially, working 2 jobs to keep a roof over our heads. How meeting Richard had been a blessing that allowed her to finally give me the stable, comfortable life she had always wanted for me. "And the incident at the airport?" her attorney prompted. My mother's eyes filled with tears. "It was the worst mistake of my life. I was under so much pressure from Richard to make his children feel prioritized. He suggested that Elena stay home so his kids could have a special trip with just us. I thought it would be okay. I thought she was mature enough to handle it. I never meant to hurt her." Her voice broke convincingly. "And the letters from Mr. Hartley? The birthday cards and gifts that were never delivered?" My mother dabbed at her eyes. "I was trying to protect Elena. David was inconsistent in those early years after the divorce. He would promise to visit and then cancel. I did not want her to get her hopes up only to be disappointed again and again. I thought I was doing the right thing, shielding her from that pain. It was a good performance. Convincing even, if you did not know the truth. I felt my father tense beside me, his jaw tight with restrained anger. Then it was Judith's turn to cross-examine. "Ms. Williams, you testified that you were struggling financially after the divorce, correct?" "Yes, that is right. And yet, according to bank records, you were receiving substantial child support payments from Mr. Hartley, payments far exceeding the court-ordered amount." Judith presented the financial documents. "Can you explain where this money went, if not toward Elena's care?" My mother's confidence faltered. "It went to her care. Rent, food, clothing, did it?" Judith interrupted smoothly. "Because according to Elena's testimony and photographic evidence, she wore second-hand clothes, often went without necessary items, and frequently ate inexpensive meals while you deposited thousands of dollars monthly into your personal account." My mother's attorney objected, but Judge Morrison overruled him, interested in the answer. I had other expenses," my mother stammered. "It is expensive to raise a child." "Indeed it is," Judith agreed. "Now let us discuss these letters you claim to have hidden to protect Elena. According to the testimony you gave moments ago, Mr. Hartley was inconsistent and unreliable in the early years after the divorce. Is that correct?" "Yes." "Then can you explain these court records showing that Mr. Hartley filed for visitation every month for 2 years, all of which you opposed?" Judith presented the documents. "Can you explain these phone logs showing regular attempted contact?" These emails to Elena's school asking for updates on her progress? Does this seem like the behavior of an inconsistent, unreliable parent? It was more complicated than that, was it? Or did you systematically work to erase Mr. Hartley from Elena's life while taking his money and telling her he did not care about her? Objection! My mother's attorney shouted. Counsel is badgering the witness. Sustained, Judge Morrison said. Ms. Bennett, please rephrase. Ms. Williams, did you or did you not deliberately prevent Mr. Hartley from having contact with his daughter while accepting his financial support? My mother looked trapped. I did what I thought was best at the time. Best for whom? Elena or yourself? Before my mother could answer, Judith moved on. Let us discuss the airport incident. You testified this was a miscommunication, a mistake made under pressure. But we have text messages from Elena sent immediately after you left her, begging you to come back, all of which you ignored. We have witness statements from airline staff describing a clearly distressed teenager who had been abandoned. We have security footage. This was not a miscommunication, Ms. Williams. This was a deliberate choice. Would you like to revise your testimony? My mother's composure crumbled completely. I made a mistake, she whispered. I know that now. But I love my daughter. I never meant to hurt her so badly. Yet you did hurt her, Judith said quietly. Repeatedly, for years. And now you want the court to give you the chance to hurt her again? My mother's attorney called Richard to testify next, clearly hoping his wealthy, respectable presence would lend credibility to their case. It backfired spectacularly. Under Judith's cross-examination, Richard admitted that he had suggested I stay home from the Bali trip because his children were not comfortable with me being there. He admitted that he had never made much effort to include me in family activities. When pressed, he even acknowledged that he viewed me as my mother's responsibility rather than part of his family. So you married Ms. Williams, but had no intention of treating her daughter as your own child? Judith asked. I treated Elena with respect and kindness, Richard replied stiffly. I provided her with a beautiful home and every material comfort. Except inclusion. Except acceptance. Except the feeling of belonging in her own home. Richard had no answer to that. Finally, it was my turn to testify. As I walked to the stand, my legs felt shaky. My mother watched me with red-rimmed eyes, looking simultaneously hopeful and terrified. My father gave me an encouraging nod. Judge Morrison smiled at me kindly. Elena, I know this is difficult. Take your time with your answers. And remember, there are no wrong answers here. I just want to understand your experience and your preferences. All right? Yes, Your Honor. Judith began with easy questions. My age, my school, how I was adjusting to life in Seattle. Then she moved into more difficult territory. Elena, can you describe your relationship with your mother over the past few years? I took a deep breath. It changed a lot after she married Richard. Before that, even though money was tight, I felt like I mattered to her, like I was important. After the marriage, I felt like an inconvenience, like something she had to manage or hide to keep Richard happy. Can you give me specific examples? I described the family dinners where I was ignored, the shopping trips for my step-silings that I was not included in, Olivia's comment about me being baggage, the gradual distancing as my mother transformed herself to fit into Richard's world, and the incident at the airport? This was the hardest part. My voice shook as I recounted that day. The realization that there was no ticket for me, my mother pulling me aside, the $200, the casual shrug as she walked away. I called her and texted her, begging her to come back, I said, tears streaming down my face now. She did not respond at all. It was like I did not even matter enough for a reply. Judge Morrison handed me a tissue. Take your time, dear. After I composed myself, my mother's attorney had his chance to question me. Elena, do you love your mother? The question caught me off guard. Yes, she is my mother. And she loves you, does not she? Despite her mistakes? I do not know, I answered honestly. I used to think so. Now I am not sure. People who love you do not abandon you at airports. They do not lie to you for years. They do not choose money and status over you. Your father is very wealthy now, he said, changing tactics. Is not that part of the appeal of living with him? The nice house, the private school, the comfortable life? I felt anger flash through me. I would live with my father in a one-bedroom apartment if that was all he had. I would go to public school and wear thrift store clothes. The money does not matter. What matters is that he wanted me. What matters is that he fought for me for years while my mother was hiding his letters and telling me he did not care. What matters is that when I called him from that airport, scared and alone, he dropped everything to come get me. That is what matters. Not the money. The love. Judge Morrison's expression softened, and I saw her make a note. My mother's attorney tried a few more questions, attempting to paint me as a rebellious teenager, angry at her mother for setting boundaries. But every question he asked just gave me another opportunity to tell the truth about my experiences. Finally, Judge Morrison addressed me directly. Elena, if it were entirely up to you, where would you choose to live? With my father, I said without hesitation. In Seattle. I feel safe there. I feel wanted. I feel like I matter. And what about contact with your mother? Would you be open to visitation? I thought about this carefully. Maybe eventually. With supervision and therapy. But not right now. I am not ready. That is very mature of you, she said gently. Thank you for your testimony, Elena. You can step down. Both attorneys gave their closing arguments. My mother's attorney talked about the importance of the mother-child bond and second chances. Judith methodically walked through the evidence of abandonment, financial misconduct, and systematic alienation of a parent. The question before this court is simple, Judith concluded. What is in Elena's best interest? Is it returning her to a home where she feels unwanted, to a mother who abandoned her without remorse, to a situation where she was hidden and managed rather than loved and cherished? Or is it allowing her to remain with a father who has fought for years to be part of her life, who provides not just material comfort, but emotional security and unconditional love? The choice, Your Honor, should be clear. Judge Morrison reviewed her notes for what felt like an eternity. Finally, she looked up. This has been one of the more clear-cut cases I have seen in some time, she began. The evidence of abandonment is overwhelming and troubling. The financial misconduct regarding child support is serious and potentially criminal. The systematic effort to alienate Mr. Hartley from his daughter's life is unconscionable. My mother let out a small sob. However, Judge Morrison continued, I am also mindful that Ms. Williams was Elena's primary caregiver for many years, and that bond, however strained, should not be completely severed without consideration. My heart sank. Was she going to send me back? Therefore, I am granting full legal and physical custody to Mr. Hartley. Effective immediately. Relief flooded through me so powerfully I felt dizzy. Ms. Williams, you will be required to repay the misappropriated child support funds on a payment schedule to be determined. You will have supervised visitation rights, 1 afternoon per month, contingent upon both Elena's willingness to participate and successful completion of family therapy sessions. These visits will be supervised by a court-appointed monitor and can be suspended at any time if they are deemed detrimental to Elena's well-being. My mother was crying openly now, her attorney trying to comfort her. Furthermore, the judge continued, her voice taking on a harder edge, I am ordering a full investigation into the financial misconduct. Depending on the findings, criminal charges may be filed. Ms. Williams, you should consider yourself fortunate that your daughter has chosen not to press charges for abandonment, because if she had, you would likely be facing jail time. She turned to me, her expression softening. Elena, I hope you understand that you have done nothing wrong here. Your mother's choices are not your fault, and you should never feel guilty for protecting yourself. I wish you all the best in your new life with your father. Thank you, Your Honor, I managed, my voice thick with emotion. As we left the courtroom, my father pulled me into a tight embrace. It is over, he whispered. You are mine, legally, officially, permanently. No one can take you away from me again. I clung to him, crying with relief and release and joy. My mother tried to approach us in the hallway, but her attorney pulled her back. She looked broken, destroyed, like her entire world had collapsed. Part of me felt sorry for her. Part of me felt triumphant. Mostly I just felt exhausted. Let us go home, my father said, keeping his arm around me as we walked toward the exit. Home, Seattle, the house on the cliff, the room that had been waiting for me all those years. That was home now. That was where I belonged. The months following the custody hearing were a period of adjustment and healing. While the legal victory had given me security, it had not erased years of trauma and manipulation. Dr. Chen helped me understand that healing would be a process, not an event. You are grieving, she explained during one of our sessions. Grieving the mother you deserved, but never had. Grieving the childhood that was stolen from you. Grieving the relationship with your father that you missed out on for so many years. That is normal and healthy. The grief came in waves. Some days I felt strong and confident, grateful for my new life and excited about the future. Other days, I would find myself crying over seemingly small things, the weight of everything I had been through crashing down on me unexpectedly. My father was patient and understanding through all of it. He never pressured me to get over it or move on. He just sat with me in the pain when I needed him to, offered distraction when I asked for it, and celebrated the good days without dismissing the hard ones. I am sorry you have to deal with all this. I told him one evening after a particularly difficult therapy session had left me emotionally raw. Elena, he said firmly, you have nothing to apologize for. This is what parents do. We show up, we support, we love unconditionally. That is what I am here for. School became a source of stability and joy. My friends at Cascade Academy knew the basics of my story. They knew I had recently moved to live with my father after a difficult situation with my mother, but they did not know all the painful details. And I appreciated that. With them, I could just be Elena, a sophomore who liked books and terrible movies and long walks by the water. Maya invited me to join the school's book club, where we met every Thursday to discuss whatever we were reading and argue passionately about character motivations and plot choices. Jordan convinced me to try out for the school play, even though I had never acted before. I ended up with a small role in the ensemble, and to my surprise, I loved it. You are coming out of your shell, Kai observed one day at lunch. When you first got here, you were so quiet. Now you actually participate in conversations. You even joke around. I guess I am learning to trust people again, I admitted. It helps that you guys have been so welcoming. That is what friends do, Priya said simply, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. Friends. Real friends. Not people who tolerated me out of obligation or treated me as an outsider. People who genuinely liked me and wanted me around. It was a revelation. As winter approached, my father and I established routines that felt comforting in their consistency. Sunday morning pancakes even when they were misshapen. Wednesday movie nights, taking turns choosing films. Saturday morning hikes in the nearby mountains, weather permitting. These small rituals became the foundation of our new life together. He told me stories about my early childhood that I had forgotten or never knew. How I used to insist on wearing my princess dress to the grocery store. How I had cried for 3 days straight when our goldfish died. How I had once tried to give away all my toys to a neighbor kid who seemed sad. You were always so empathetic, he said. So aware of other people's feelings. I worried sometimes that you felt too much, that the world would hurt you because you cared too deeply. It did hurt me, I said quietly, but I would rather feel deeply and risk pain than become cold and indifferent like Mom. He squeezed my hand. That is very wise. In December, per the custody agreement, I had my first supervised visitation with my mother. The court-appointed monitor, a kind woman named Mrs. Rodriguez, met us at a neutral location, a family counseling center downtown. I was incredibly nervous in the days leading up to it. What would I even say to my mother? What if she tried to manipulate me again? What if seeing her brought back all the pain I had been working so hard to process? Dr. Chen helped me prepare. You get to set boundaries, she reminded me. You do not owe your mother forgiveness if you are not ready to give it. You do not have to pretend everything is fine. Be honest about how you feel. When I walked into the visitation room and saw my mother sitting at a table, looking nervous and small, I felt a complicated mixture of emotions. Anger, sadness, pity, residual love that I could not quite extinguish despite everything. Elena, she said, standing up quickly. Thank you for coming. I was not sure you would. I sat down across from her, Mrs. Rodriguez sitting slightly off to the side, present but unobtrusive. The court ordered it, I said flatly. I am here because I am supposed to be, not because I want to be. She flinched but nodded. I understand. I deserve that. We sat in awkward silence for a moment. I have been in therapy, my mother said finally. Individual therapy, like the court ordered. My therapist says I have a lot of unresolved issues around money and security, that I let fear of being poor again control my decisions. That does not excuse what you did, I said. No, she agreed quietly. It does not. Nothing excuses what I did. I abandoned my own daughter for a man and a lifestyle. I lied to you for years about your father. I stole money that was meant for you. I was a terrible mother, Elena. I know that now. Hearing her admit it felt strange. Part of me had wanted this acknowledgement for so long. Part of me did not care anymore. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Are you hoping I will forgive you? Tell you it is okay? No, she said, surprising me. I am telling you because you deserve to hear it. You deserve an apology, even though an apology could never be enough. I am not asking for forgiveness. I do not think I deserve it. I'm just asking that maybe someday you might be willing to let me try to be better, to be the mother I should have been all along. I thought about that carefully. I do not know if I can ever trust you again. I do not know if we will ever have a real relationship. Right now, all I feel when I look at you is hurt and anger. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. That is fair. That is more than fair. But maybe, I continued slowly, if you keep going to therapy, if you actually do the work to figure out why you made the choices you made, if you prove over time that you are serious about changing, maybe someday we could have something, not what we had before, but something. I will do the work, she promised, whatever it takes, for as long as it takes. That first visit was short, only 30 minutes. We did not hug when it ended, but it was a start, not a reconciliation, but perhaps the beginning of a path toward one eventually, if my mother proved she meant what she said. As Christmas approached, my father asked what I wanted to do for the holidays. I have always gone big for Christmas, he admitted. But I want this year to be about what you want. We can travel somewhere warm, stay here and have a quiet celebration. Whatever feels right to you. I thought about past Christmases, the years before the divorce when it was the three of us, modest but happy. The years after, when my mother and I struggled but tried to make it special. The last Christmas with Richard's family, where I had felt invisible among the expensive gifts and elaborate decorations. I want it to be just us, I said. Here, simple, real. Christmas morning arrived with light snow falling, rare for Seattle. My father and I made pancakes together, laughing when mine turned out even more misshapen than his. We opened presents in our pajamas. He gave me books he had carefully selected based on my interests, a new laptop for school, and a beautiful journal with my initials embossed on the cover. For your thoughts, he explained. Your therapist mentioned journaling might help you process everything. I thought you should have something special to write in. I gave him a framed photo I had found in his collection, one of the two of us from when I was about 4 years old. He was pushing me on a swing, and we were both laughing, caught in a perfect moment of pure joy. To remember, I said simply. He looked at the photo for a long moment, his eyes glistening. I never forgot, he said. Not even for a day. We spent the afternoon watching terrible Christmas movies and eating too much food. It was perfect, simple and real, and exactly what I needed. As the new year approached, I found myself feeling genuinely hopeful about the future for the first time in years. I was doing well in school, making friends, building a real relationship with my father. The pain of my mother's betrayal was still there, would probably always be there in some form, but it no longer defined me. You have made remarkable progress, Dr. Chen told me during one of our sessions in January. When you first started therapy, you were carrying so much shame and self-blame. Now you understand that your mother's choices were about her limitations, not your worth. I still have bad days, I admitted. Of course you do. Healing is not linear, remember? But the bad days are getting less frequent. The good days are getting better. That is progress. In February, on my 16th birthday, my father threw me a party. Not a big ostentatious event, just a gathering with my close friends, good food, and a homemade cake that he and I made together, lopsided as always. Maya, Jordan, Kai, and Priya came over, and we spent the evening playing board games. watching movies and talking about everything and nothing. At one point, I looked around the room. My friends laughing and arguing over game rules, my father bringing out more snacks, and I felt something I had not felt in years, pure, uncomplicated happiness. "Make a wish," my father said when it was time for the cake. I closed my eyes and thought about what I wanted. A year ago, I would have wished to go back in time, to prevent the divorce, to make my mother love me the way I needed to be loved. But now I wished for more days like this one. More laughter, more healing, more love. I wished to forgive myself fully for things that were never my fault. I wished for the strength to keep moving forward. I blew out the candles, and my friends cheered. Later, after everyone had gone home, my father and I sat on the deck watching the stars. "This was the best birthday I have ever had," I told him honestly. He smiled. "You deserve many more just like it, every year for the rest of your life." "Thank you," I said, "for coming to get me, for fighting for me all those years, for never giving up." "Elena," he said, turning to look at me seriously, "you never have to thank me for loving you. That is not something you earn or deserve or have to be grateful for. That is just what love is. Unconditional, unchanging, always there." Those words settled into my heart, filling spaces that had been empty for too long. As spring arrived, bringing with it longer days and warmer weather, I found myself thinking more about the future than the past. College was still 2 years away, but my father and I had started having conversations about what I might want to study, where I might want to go. "Have you thought about what interests you?" he asked one evening. "What you might want to do with your life?" "I think I want to help people," I said slowly, working through the thoughts as I spoke them. "Kids specifically, kids in situations like mine, kids dealing with divorce and custody battles and parents who use them as weapons." His expression softened. "That is beautiful, Elena, and it makes sense. You would be incredible at that. Maybe psychology," I continued, warming to the idea. "Or social work, or family law like Judith. Something where I can use my experience to help others navigate the system better than I had to." "Whatever you choose, I will support you," he promised. "And if you decide to change directions completely and become a marine biologist or an astronaut or a chef, I will support that too. Your future is yours to create." The monthly supervised visits with my mother continued, gradually becoming less awkward, though never quite comfortable. She was keeping her promise to do the work. She talked openly about her therapy sessions, about the childhood poverty that had shaped her obsession with financial security, about the ways she had let fear drive her decisions. "I grew up watching my own mother struggle," she explained during one visit. "We were evicted 3 times before I was 10. I wore the same pair of shoes for 2 years straight, even after they had holes in the bottom. I swore I would never be in that position again. But somewhere along the way, that fear became more important than anything else, more important than integrity, more important than you. I understand fear," I told her, "but I do not understand choosing a wealthy man over your own child. I do not understand lying for years. I do not understand abandonment. I do not fully understand it either," she admitted. "That is what I am working on in therapy, understanding how I became someone capable of doing that to you." In April, my mother and Richard's marriage fell apart. She called to tell me herself, her voice shaky, but somehow lighter than it had been in months. "He filed for divorce," she said. "Once the court case was over, and he realized I might face criminal charges, that I would have to repay all that child support money, he decided I was not worth the trouble anymore." "I am sorry," I said, and I meant it. Despite everything, I did not want her to be hurt. "I am not," she replied, surprising me. "I can see now that he never really loved me. He loved the idea of me, the woman who was grateful for his wealth and status, the woman who would do anything, even abandon her own daughter, to keep him happy. That was not love. That was transaction. I am better off alone." "What will you do now?" I asked. "I am moving back to our old neighborhood," she said. "I found a small apartment near where we used to live. I am going back to work, waiting tables again, trying to figure out who I am when I am not performing for someone else." There was something in her voice, a hint of the woman she used to be before Richard, before the obsession with status and security consumed her. "I hope you find yourself," I told her honestly. I hope therapy helps you understand why you made the choices you made. And I hope someday you can forgive yourself because I am not there yet. I do not expect you to be, she said quietly. I just hope someday you might be willing to try. That spring, I auditioned for the school's advanced theater program and got in. The director said I had a natural ability to convey complex emotions, probably because I had lived through so many of them. I also joined the peer counseling program at school, training to help other students navigate difficult family situations. You are turning your pain into purpose, Dr. Chen observed approvingly. That is one of the healthiest responses to trauma. In May, my father had to travel to New York for a business conference. It would only be 3 days, but he was hesitant to leave me alone. I will be fine, I assured him. Linda will be nearby if I need anything. Plus, I am 16 now. I can handle 3 days. I know you can, he said. But after what your mother did, leaving you alone, I am worried you might feel abandoned. Dad, I said gently, you are going on a business trip and coming back in 3 days. Mom abandoned me at an airport for a 2-week vacation and did not even respond when I begged her to come back. There is a difference. I know you are coming home. He pulled me into a hug. You are incredibly mature for 16. Sometimes I forget you are still just a kid. I have not felt like just a kid in a long time, I admitted. But I am learning to let myself be one again. To trust that the adults in my life will actually take care of me. While he was gone, I spent time with my friends, worked on homework, and had long phone conversations with him every evening. It was good practice for the independence I would need when college eventually came around. On the 3rd evening, as we were talking on the phone, he mentioned something that caught me off guard. I have been thinking about something, he said carefully. And I want your honest opinion. Would you be okay if I started dating again? I was quiet for a moment, processing the question. Have you met someone? Not seriously, he said quickly. But there is a woman at work, Sarah, who I have gotten to know over the past few months. We have had lunch a few times. She knows about you, knows about everything that happened. She has been very understanding and supportive, but I would not pursue anything if it would make you uncomfortable. I thought about it carefully. My immediate instinct was jealousy, fear that I might lose the attention and love I had finally found. But I also knew that was not fair. My father deserved happiness. He deserved companionship. Is she nice? I asked. Very nice, kind, funny. She has a daughter a few years older than you who is in college now. She understands how important you are to me, that you are my priority. Then you should ask her out properly, I said, surprising myself with how much I meant it. You deserve to be happy, Dad. You deserve someone who appreciates you. Just make sure she knows that if she hurts you, she will have to answer to me. He laughed, the sound warm and full of love. Deal. Thank you for being so mature about this, Elena. That means the world to me. When he returned from New York, he brought me a gift, a beautiful snow globe of the city skyline. So you can remember that I always come home, he said. I kept it on my nightstand, a reminder that not all parents abandon their children. Some fight to stay, some come back, some never leave in the first place. As the school year wound down and summer approached, I made a decision. I was ready to open some of the gifts my father had bought for me over the years, the ones that had been sitting on my dresser in their original wrapping. Are you sure? He asked when I told him. You do not have to open them if it is too painful. I want to, I said. They are part of our story, part of how you kept me in your heart even when you could not keep me in your life. We sat together on my bed, and I opened them one by one. A book about constellations for my 10th birthday, because he remembered I loved stars. A journal with a beautiful leather cover for my 11th Christmas. A set of art supplies for my 12th birthday, when he thought I might be developing an interest in drawing. Each gift was thoughtful and perfect, chosen with love and care for a daughter he could not reach. By the time I finished, we were both crying. You knew me, I whispered. Even without seeing me, you knew who I was and what I would like. You are my daughter, he said simply. I will always know you. That summer, instead of planning an elaborate vacation, my father asked what I wanted to do with our time together. Can we do ordinary things? I asked. Like just be a normal family? Cook dinners together and watch TV and go to the beach and be boring? He laughed. After everything you have been through, boring sounds perfect. So we had a boring, wonderful summer. We tried new recipes and failed spectacularly at most of them. We binge-watched entire seasons of shows. We went to the beach almost every day, sometimes swimming, sometimes just sitting and watching the waves. We played board games and went to farmers markets and did all the ordinary, mundane things that make up a life. And it was perfect. One evening in late July, as we sat on the deck watching the sunset, my father said, I have been thinking about something. What is that? I never legally adopted you after the divorce. Your mother insisted on keeping primary custody, and the court agreed at the time. But now, with full custody, I could petition to formally adopt you, to make it official in every legal sense. Would you want that? I looked at him. This man who had fought for years to be my father, who had never given up, who had created a home for me and loved me unconditionally. You are already my dad in every way that matters, I said. But yes, I would like that. I would like it to be official. He smiled, reaching over to squeeze my hand. Then we will make it happen. As the summer ended and my junior year of high school approached, I found myself in a place I never expected to be when I was sitting on that airport bench 15 months ago. I was happy, genuinely, deeply happy. I had a father who loved me, friends who supported me, a future full of possibilities. The pain of my mother's betrayal had not disappeared. I do not think it ever would completely, but it no longer defined me. It was part of my story, but not the whole story. Not even the most important part anymore. I had learned that families are not just biology and obligation. They are the people who show up, the people who fight for you, the people who love you. Even when it is hard, even when it is inconvenient, even when you cannot love yourself. My father had shown me what real parental love looked like. Not perfect, because no one is perfect, but consistent and unconditional and always, always there. And somehow, despite everything, I was going to be okay. Better than okay. I was going to thrive. 3 years later, I stood in the graduation gown of Cascade Academy, preparing to deliver the valedictorian speech. My father sat in the front row, beaming with pride. Next to him was Sarah, who had indeed become a permanent part of our lives, bringing her own warmth and kindness into our family. Behind them sat my friends, Maya and Jordan and Kai and Priya, who had been with me through so much growth and healing. And in the back row, almost hidden, sat my mother. We had slowly, carefully rebuilt something over the past 3 years. Not the relationship we once had that was gone forever, shattered beyond repair, but something new. Something honest. She had continued therapy, continued the hard work of understanding why she had made the choices she made. She had moved back to our old neighborhood, returned to work, found a small community of friends who knew her as she really was, not as Richard's wife or as someone performing for approval. Our monthly visits had evolved into occasional coffee meetings, brief, careful conversations where we were learning to know each other as individuals rather than as the mother and daughter we used to be. I had not forgiven her completely. I was not sure I ever would. But I had made peace with what happened. I had stopped letting it control my present and my future. She had asked permission to come to my graduation. I understand if you say no, she had written in a text. But I am so proud of you, Elena. Even though I have no right to be. Even though I did not earn the privilege of celebrating this with you. I just wanted you to know. I had thought about it for a long time before responding. You can come, But you are not family seating. You are just audience. I understand. Thank you. Now, looking out at the assembled crowd as I prepared to speak, I caught her eye briefly. She was crying, quietly, her hand pressed to her mouth. Whether it was grief for what she had lost or joy at what I had become despite her, I could not tell. Maybe both. I cleared my throat and began my speech. 3 years ago, I learned an important lesson about what family really means. I learned that family is not just the people you are born to. It is not just biology and obligation. Family is the people who show up when you need them most. The people who fight for you when you cannot fight for yourself. The people who love you, not for what you can do for them, but simply because you exist. I saw my father wipe his eyes. I learned this lesson in the hardest way possible. Through loss and betrayal and pain that I thought might break me permanently. But here is what I also learned. Pain can be transformative if you let it. Betrayal can teach you about the depths of real love when you find people who will never betray you. Loss can show you what truly matters. I paused, gathering my thoughts. Many of you know parts of my story. You know I moved here unexpectedly my sophomore year. You know I was starting over in more ways than one. What you might not know is how close I came to believing I was not worth loving. How close I came to accepting that I was just baggage, just a complication, just someone to be managed and hidden. My voice grew stronger. But I learned something crucial. Other people's inability to love you properly is not a reflection of your worth. It is a reflection of their capacity. Some people are so damaged by their own pain, so consumed by their own fears, that they cannot love anyone else the way they deserve to be loved. And that is tragic, but it is not your fault. You do not have to shrink yourself to fit their limitations. You do not have to accept crumbs when you deserve the whole feast. I looked directly at my father now. I am standing here today because someone refused to give up on me. Someone fought for years to be part of my life, even when the system and circumstances worked against him. Someone kept a room ready, kept buying birthday presents, kept believing that someday we would find our way back to each other. And when I called him from the lowest point of my life, scared and abandoned and completely alone, he did not hesitate. He came, he showed up, he reminded me what unconditional love actually looks like. The audience was completely silent now, hanging on every word. So here is my message to the graduating class of Cascade Academy. You are going out into a world that will sometimes hurt you. People you trust will disappoint you. People you love will let you down. That is inevitable. That is part of being human. But do not let those disappointments convince you that you are unlovable. Do not let betrayal make you bitter. Do not let pain close your heart. I smiled, feeling the truth of what I was about to say. Instead, let those experiences teach you what real love looks like. Let them show you the difference between people who claim to love you and people who actually do. Let them guide you toward building the family you deserve, whether that is the family you are born into or the family you choose for yourself. Because love, real love, is not about grand gestures or expensive gifts or perfect circumstances. It is about showing up. It is about staying. It is about fighting. It is about choosing each other every single day, even when it is hard. I took a deep breath. We have all been through challenges to get to this moment. We have all overcome obstacles. We have all grown in ways we never expected. As we leave this place and move forward into our futures, take with you the knowledge that you are stronger than you think, that you are worthy of love, that you deserve people in your life who see your value and celebrate it, not people who make you feel like you have to earn the basic respect and care that should be freely given. I looked at my classmates, this group of people who had welcomed me when I was broken and celebrated with me as I healed. Thank you for being part of my journey. Thank you for showing me what friendship and community look like. Thank you for accepting me exactly as I was and encouraging me to become who I wanted to be. I am proud to graduate alongside all of you. As I finished and stepped away from the podium, the applause was thunderous. My father was openly crying now, his pride evident in every gesture. Sarah squeezed his hand, smiling at me with genuine affection. My friends were cheering and whistling. And in the back, my mother was still crying, but something had shifted in her expression. Maybe it was acceptance. Maybe it was understanding that I had become someone amazing, not because of her, but despite her. Maybe it was grief for all the moments she had missed, all the growth she had not been part of. Maybe it was all of those things. After the ceremony, my father pulled me into a tight embrace. "I am so proud of you," he whispered. "Not just for the speech, though, that was incredible, but for everything. For the person you have become, for the strength you have shown, for choosing to heal instead of staying bitter." "I learned from the best," I replied, hugging him tighter. Sarah hugged me next. "You are an extraordinary young woman, Elena. Your father talks about you constantly, and I can see why. You are going to change the world." My friends swarmed me, all of us laughing and crying and taking pictures, trying to capture this moment before we scattered to different colleges and different futures. Eventually, inevitably, my mother approached. She hung back, waiting until everyone else had their moment, clearly uncertain if she was welcome. "Hi," she said softly when I finally acknowledged her. "That was a beautiful speech." "Thank you for coming," I replied, my tone polite but distant. "Elena, I know I do not have the right to say this, but I am so incredibly proud of who you have become. You are strong and wise and compassionate despite everything I put you through, despite the ways I failed you. Because of Dad," I corrected gently, "and because of therapy, and because of friends who actually cared about me. Not despite you. Because I found people who could give me what you could not." She flinched but nodded. "You are right. I just wanted you to know that I see it. I see how amazing you are. And I see how much I lost when I made the choices I made. I hope you have found some peace," I said honestly. "I hope therapy has helped you understand yourself better. But I need you to understand something too. You are not part of my future the way you were part of my past. You are not Mom anymore, not really. You are just Karen, someone I see occasionally because we share history. That is all you get to be now." Her face crumpled, but she nodded. "I understand, and I am grateful for even that much. I do not deserve it." "No," I agreed, "you do not. But I am not doing it for you. I am doing it because holding on to anger was poisoning me. Because forgiveness is something I needed for my own healing, not something you earned. So we can have these occasional, surface-level interactions, but do not expect more. Do not expect me to trust you with anything important or vulnerable. That privilege is gone forever." "I understand," she whispered. "Thank you for letting me see who you have become, even from a distance." She left shortly after, and I turned back to the people who actually mattered. My father, who had never given up. Sarah, who had welcomed me with open arms. My friends, who had helped me remember how to trust and laugh and be young. That evening, we had a celebration at the house. Nothing elaborate, just the people I loved most, good food, and genuine joy. As I looked around at the faces of my chosen family, I realized something profound. My mother had thought abandoning me at that airport would free her to pursue the life she wanted with Richard and his children. She thought I was the obstacle standing between her and happiness. But in reality, abandoning me was what destroyed her chance at real happiness. She lost everything that mattered, chasing things that did not, a pattern she was only now beginning to recognize and address. Meanwhile, I had found everything that mattered precisely because she had left me behind. If she had taken me to Bali that day, I might still be trapped in that house, feeling unwanted and invisible, never knowing that my father had been fighting for me all along. I might have gone years or even decades before learning the truth. In the cruelest irony of all, my mother's worst act had led to my greatest liberation. "What are you thinking about?" my father asked, noticing my contemplative expression. "Just how strange life is," I replied. "How the worst thing that ever happened to me ended up being the thing that saved me." He put his arm around my shoulders. "That is the thing about resilience. It does not mean bad things did not happen. It means you survived them and became stronger because of them. You took your pain and turned it into wisdom. That is rare and precious, Elena." A few weeks later, I stood in front of the mirror in my room, preparing for my freshman year at Stanford University. I had chosen to study psychology, determined to help other kids navigate the broken system that had failed me and so many others. My father had insisted on driving me down to California himself, refusing to just put me on a plane. "I missed so many first days of school," he had said. "I am not missing this one." As I packed the last of my things, I picked up the journal he had given me for Christmas 3 years ago. It was full now, filled with my thoughts and feelings and growth over the years of healing. I flipped through the pages, seeing my own evolution in the handwriting and word choices. Early entries full of pain and confusion, middle entries showing the slow work of processing and understanding. Recent entries reflecting hope and excitement for the future. On the last page, I wrote one final entry. "I used to think family was something you were born into, something you were stuck with no matter what. I used to think love meant sacrificing yourself to make other people happy. I used to think I was the problem because the people who were supposed to love me could not do it right. I was wrong about all of it. Family is something you build with people who deserve to be in your life. Love means supporting each other to become your best selves. And I was never the problem. I was just surrounded by people who could not see my value. Now I am surrounded by people who can, and everything is different. I am different. I am whole. I am enough. I always was. I just needed to find the people who could help me see it. Thank you, Dad, for never giving up on me. Thank you for showing me what real love looks like. Thank you for being my family in every way that matters. I love you. Always. Elena." I closed the journal and placed it carefully in my suitcase. Then I took one last look around the room that had been waiting for me all those years. The room where I had healed. The room where I had learned to trust again. The room where I had become myself. "Ready?" my father called from downstairs. I smiled, picking up my bags. "Ready." As we drove toward Stanford, toward my future, I thought about that girl sitting on the airport bench 3 years ago. Abandoned, terrified, convinced she was worthless. If I could go back and tell her what was coming, what would I say? I would tell her that the pain would not last forever, that being left behind would eventually feel like being set free, that she would find people who would fight for her the way she deserved, that she would heal and grow and thrive in ways she could not yet imagine. I would tell her that someday she would stand in front of her graduating class and tell her story without shame, that she would head to college with excitement instead of fear, that she would have a father who loved her unconditionally and friends, who truly knew her and a future full of purpose and possibility. I would tell her that abandonment would not define her, that betrayal would not destroy her, that she was so much stronger than she knew, but mostly, I would tell her what I finally understood with complete certainty. You do not need everyone to love you. You do not need the people who hurt you to validate your worth. You just need one person, one real person, to show up and stay and fight for you. One person who sees your value and refuses to let you forget it. I had found that person, and because of him, I had found myself. The rest was just details. Sometimes the worst betrayals become our greatest transformations. Sometimes being abandoned leads us to discover who was truly fighting for us all along. And sometimes the people who leave us do us the greatest favor. Of all, they clear space for the people who will actually love us the way we deserve. If you have been through something similar, If you have been betrayed or abandoned or made to feel worthless by people who should have protected you, please hear this. Their failure to love you properly is not evidence of your inadequacy. It is evidence of theirs. You are worthy. You are enough. And somewhere out there are people who will see your value and celebrate it and fight for you the way Elena's father fought for her. Hold on. Keep going. Your people are out there. Your happy ending is waiting. And the pain you are feeling right now might just be the catalyst that leads you to the life you were always meant to have. Thank you for listening to Elena's story. If it touched your heart or reminded you of your own journey, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might need to hear that they are not alone. Leave a comment below telling me about your own experience with betrayal, healing, or finding your real family. Your story matters. You matter. And you are never as alone as you might feel. Until next time, remember, family is not who you are born to. Family is who shows up, who stays, who fights, who loves you unconditionally, always.